when I got that mentorship course, I put almost all my money into it. I think it was $7,000 total that I had. I put it all towards that. And I was going to use credit cards to pay for marketing. And like, I don't always advise that for everyone, but like, you want to know if there was a fire under my ass after that? Absolutely.
Yep.
That was all my money.
Yep.
I better make it work. It's like, it's almost like putting a gun to your own head. Like, do it, finish it, do the work you said you're going to do. And so I think that's important to consider. What is significant for you in terms of an investment?
You're listening to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show, a podcast that discusses the intricacies of real estate investing with your host, Marcus E. Maloney. Marcus is a real estate investor best known for being the equity king. He's been awarded that moniker because he and his team find amazing real estate deals. He will be talking with investors who have done some transformational things in the real estate industry. They'll discuss their process, their strategies, and how their investments transform their lives and the communities they invest in. We welcome you to the We Love Equity Real Estate Show.
The We Love Equity Show is brought to you by ASREA, widely recognized as an outstanding resource for real estate investors with exceptional education, networking, and support, along with profit-enhancing benefits in all aspects of real estate investing. Visit ASREA at www.asrea.org. That's visit ASREA at www.azrea.org. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the We Love Equity Real Estate Show. And today I'm truly excited because I get a chance to talk with someone that's doing pretty much the same thing that I'm doing. He's wholesaling from Denver to Indianapolis, and I do things from Phoenix to Chicago. So we're crossing paths in a sense, but this is our first time actually getting a chance to meet virtually. So I want to bring to the virtual stage and to our podcast, Chris Gould, who is based out of Denver, but wholesaling in the Indianapolis market. So you have two different markets. You have a high price market in Denver, and then you have a more so Midwest, blue collar, Rust Belt state where the median prices are, between 200 and 150 or below. So Chris, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm excited to be on here and good to talk to someone that's doing pretty much the exact same thing I am.
Absolutely, man. So we're not going to hold back on this episode, guys. So if you're listening, grab your pen, your paper, your iPad. Make sure you take good notes, especially if you are looking to virtual wholesale. So Chris, tell me, man, what's your backstory? What did you do before real estate investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just going back, my family was in the real estate crash in 2008. We stopped paying our mortgage for a year and a half, 2 years, almost lost a house. Financial insecurity was just a part of our everyday existence. As kids, anytime we went out to eat, it's like you were kind of guilted because it's like, well, we really shouldn't be doing this. And so
right.
Just from a young age, I was like, you know what? I don't want that for myself or my family, for any of that. So fast forward, go through college. I was going to be a lawyer, decided I don't want to do that at all. I want this time freedom. And so I get a job, corporate America, I'm doing the rat race, trying to be a good boy and get a gold star and all that stuff.
Yep.
I work my butt off for a whole year to be the salesperson of the year in my company. And I was supposed to get a $10,000 bonus. And so I got the bonus, but after taxes it was like $6,000. And I'm like, man, I just worked all year for $6,000.
Right.
And I was like, can I even buy anything with this? I'm like, what about an FHA? And I was living in Los Angeles at the time. So this is the birth of the virtual wholesaling side of things. And I was like, I can't even rent a nice apartment for $6,000, And so I'm like, you know what? I got to start doing something different. So someone told me about wholesaling. I got a course from Sean Terry, him. And
okay. Yeah. Sean Terry right here in Phoenix.
Exactly. And I think I took that $6,000 I had. I didn't have a much more above that. And I spent like $2,000 of it on a course, which is a lot of money.
Yep.
I think that's important when you start off. Like if you're trying to go through YouTube Academy only and do it all free, like you can, but it's just going to take you way longer,
It is.
So started doing PPC nationwide, trying to get sellers based off what I found from Sean's course, but like didn't really know what I was doing. Finally got a guy who said he would sell me his house at what I thought was a discount. I overnight mailed him a contract with a overnight return inside of it because I didn't know about DocuSign.
Okay.
So he got it, signed it, sent it back to me. And that just turned into a nightmare deal. It took 6 months. I made $3,000. And I was like, you know what? This business isn't worth it. I got to get out of this. This is a scam. This might even be illegal.
Right. Immediately start thinking all of the negatives, not looking at, you know what? I just made $3,000 on a house that, because you never been to the house, right?
No, I'd never been to it. And you know what you said, like looking at the positive or the negative, before I started getting some wins under my belt as an entrepreneur, like there's just so much negative self-talk that can be around, you know, that you kind of have to, it's like double hard because you're trying to learn everything, but you're also fighting against all this stuff that says, be realistic, just stay your job, focus on the stability and all that. And so before I said, let me shut this down, a lead came in, turned into another house. It was like, ended up being a $5,000 wholesale, but there was title issues. And I said, I'm going to, you know what, like whatever, if this closes, cool, but I'm going to focus on my job again. So I'm focusing on my job. And a couple months later, I just get an email that says, hey, the title work finally cleared. You're getting paid on this house. So I had this $5,000 and I was like, you know what, I could just stash this. I could go on vacation or I could hire a mentor. So I ended up hired a mentor, started dialing in my processes, picked one market instead of being all over the place, picked Indianapolis and just kind of rolled it from there, like keeping money in the business, you know, not going out and buying a new car, not going out and buying new clothes and new shoes and like all the experiences. Cause I really saw the vision of like time freedom down the road from that. So hired an employee, couple JV partners. I think that's important when you start off virtual wholesaling. Like JV partners are so helpful to you, especially if you don't have a lot of money.
Well, you know what, Chris, let's do this before we get too far down the road, because I understand everything that you're talking about, you know, been there, done that, doing it still, you know. So let's kind of go back to the beginning. So you were working this job, this sales job, right? And you said, you know what, I want to try something different. You took that $2,000 and you bought that course. What were you thinking, you know, at the time to say, you know what, I really want to do this? Was it, I want to do this, or I want to try this to see if it works? What, if you can remember, what was your thought pattern then?
Yeah, I think Tony Robbins talks about like the pain of staying the same has to rise to a level great enough for you to make a change. And so, you know, I was sitting there, I'm living in this little crappy apartment in LA, and I wasn't going to be able to accelerate in my life as fast as I wanted to. And the pain of that, the pain of like, I have greater potential than this. I know I do. And I just like, there, as much as I didn't have wins, like there was this belief that was just like, I'm destined for more than this. So once I found that outlet, it became like, I was obsessed with it once I got started, but like the pain of staying the same became too great for me. And I think that was at the core of it.
Yeah. And I tell people, you know, there's this little flicker inside of you. Like you said, you knew that you was destined for much greater. You didn't know what it was. You didn't know how to get there, but you felt internally like, I'm better than this. I can do something better than this. And you begin to search and try and find out, well, what is that better? So guys, I'm speaking directly to you. You know, I know you have that burning desire inside of you. You're thinking, hey, I'm better than where I am. You're absolutely right. You are better than where you are. But that pain of staying the same has to be a lot greater than where you are. So take that advice right there from Chris and just get out there, and you have to take that jump. I'm pretty sure spending that $2,000, you were thinking, man, you know what, this could be 2 months worth of rent. It could be, you know, groceries. It could be whatever. But you said, you know what, I'm going to take this leap of faith.
100%. Yeah. That's absolutely what it was. And, you know, I think also it's the amount of money you spend, it's got to be proportional to what you have, you know? So I spent a third of all my money and it took me a year to get that money. So to me, it was huge. If you're making 200 grand a year and you're thinking about getting into wholesaling, $2,000, you probably won't even watch that course. You'll probably watch one video and be like, I'll watch it later, or you give it to someone else to do. So I think like there's an aspect in the beginning that people, I get it. Cause like I didn't want to spend money, but then I realized I have to bet on myself. Yep. Like, and that once you bet on yourself and you put, when I got that mentorship course, I put almost all my money into it. I think it was $7,000 total that I had. I put it all towards that. And I was going to use credit cards to pay for marketing. And like, I don't always advise that for everyone, but like, you want to know if there was a fire under my ass after that. Absolutely.
Yep.
That was all my money.
Yep.
I better make it work. It's almost like putting a gun to your own head. Like do it, finish it, do the work you said you're going to do. And so, I think that's important to consider, what is significant for you in terms of an investment. 2,000 might be crazy to you, but can you spend 500 and get a course, whatever it might be. So.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And that mentorship is very, very key. Like you said, you guys, you can go to YouTube University, you can sit there and you can watch videos for months, but it's that whole accountability piece. When there's somebody on the other side saying, hey, did you do your marketing? Or why didn't you talk to that seller? It makes you have to rise to that level of expectation of that mentor to say, hey, you know what? I did make the calls. I did do what I was supposed to do. And the more you do that, the closer you are to achieving that goal of getting that first deal. So, Chris, when you got that first deal, man, you said it was PPC. You went through Sean Terry's course. Big ups to Sean Terry, man. He's definitely a good guy. So when you got that first deal, kind of what was going through your head on that? When the seller called, did you know what to say? Did you know what to do or anything like that?
No, man, I didn't know. Those early courses and some of, this is back in 2016, there was no discussing like sales psychology at all. So it was just all numbers. All in the logic brain. And so it really just became like, I would look at Zillow and I would try to look at some comps and I would just ask them what they wanted. And if they wanted low enough based on me saying no repairs, no commissions, I would just say, okay. And so I tried to wholesale the deal to a FHA conventional buyer. And I was like, yep, here you go. Here's an assignment. So then they go to their bank and they're like, hey, here's a cash offer and an assignment to us. We want to do an FHA loan. And they're like, what are you, crazy? You can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that. What are you talking about?
So it took so long. And, looking back, like, it's like, man, I feel bad that I didn't know totally what I was doing. Luckily, I got the deal done eventually. But like, there's some of that clunkiness that you go through where it's just like, you just don't quite know at the beginning what you don't know. But if you're taking action, like, you better believe that I learned that lesson hard because it wasn't from a book. It wasn't something in a course. It was from my own stumble. When you stumble on your own, you don't forget those.
That's right. That's absolutely true. And there's only so much education you can get from the courses in the books, because like you said, there's these small little nuances that you can't get until you're actually out there doing it. So like the title lady, she'll tell you, well, you can't do this, or you need to switch this. You can't do this. One of my earlier issues was, I sent all of my contracts to a title company that wasn't investor friendly. So they wouldn't do assignments and everything like that. So it was a red flag for my seller, because then I was like, oh, well, we need to switch title companies. Well, why we got to switch title companies? So it was a whole bunch of red flags, but I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have got into the minutia of doing everything and finding out those problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. Learning from experience is huge. So.
Yep. So you get that first deal closed, you get this second deal of the $5,000, and you're doing this, and man, kudos to you, because you started out with virtual wholesaling. So you didn't walk properties, you didn't go belly to belly with sellers. So it was all doing everything over the phone. It's kind of tough to get started in that way. But you guys listening, this is what Chris did. So if Chris can do it, you can do it also.
And Marcus, I think the thing about it, that looking back now, what it forced me to do is dial in my processes very quickly. And, I didn't have the option to get in the car and drive out and save the deal by going to the house. I had to do things in the right way, in the right order. If I forget to put a lockbox on the house, I can't just drive over and put it on. If I don't have, an inspector go over, there's so much coordination. And so in a lot of ways, I think that it actually now has created the fruits of that early starting point of being virtual. Because now I look at other companies and I look at us and I'm like, I think we're more dialed than most other companies that I come across for the size that we are. So, it's possible if you start it that way.
So let's kind of talk about that. Let's talk about the processes and systems that's needed to be a successful virtual wholesaler. So kind of starting out.
Okay.
So are you still doing strictly PPC, or are you doing cold calling, direct mail? Kind of what's your marketing strategy right now?
So we're heavy on direct.
Okay.
I like open letter marketing and also yellow letter HQ. Those are the two guys that we go between. We get about a 7x ROI on that. We spend $20,000 to $25,000 a month on that.
Okay.
So that's a really good one for us. We do cold calling. That's just at like a 2x ROI, and it's a very slow process for us to turn those leads into deals. It's a lot of crap leads, but there's some good ones in there. We buy some web leads online. So there's a couple of different auction sites. iSpeed lead, need to sell my house fast. We'll sometimes buy leads on there. At any given time, they're like crazy expensive, and then sometimes they go back down. We did text messaging, but found that it wasn't really producing great results, and it was a lot of leads that our follow-up specialist had to process. We could talk about follow-up specialists later, but they were having to process so many unmotivated sellers because we were pushing so much through with texting. And we just didn't have the ability to process those. So we're kind of missing good ones because we're having to go through so many bad ones. And let me see what else. We do some decent referrals that come through actually. And I think that's all of our current avenues right now.
Okay. So with direct mail, you're getting a 7-to-1 ratio. So for every dollar you put in, you're getting 7 out. Correct. And then for cold calling, 1 to 2, every dollar you put in, you're getting 2 out. So guys, you're hearing some real life metrics here. So with that being said, so your focus right now is the direct mail as far as your marketing strategy?
It's where we're spending the most amount of our money. I would say that, the thing with some of these Midwest cities is like at a certain point, like how many landlords are there? Like you're mailing every single landlord in the whole city. And so we're kind of getting to the point now where we have to expand. And that's, going to the mentorship side of things. And I would also say the number one thing that's impacted my success in my business is getting a good mentor, period. No question. It's so far ahead in terms of its positive impact. There's nothing else that's even close. So I know you're a mentor. So I just want to say for those people out there listening, like if you don't have a mentor, talk to Marcus, talk to someone else that you respect. Like that'll help you get ahead so much faster. It's like putting, it's like warp speeding your business is what I found from that.
And what I tell people, it's like putting gas on that fire because I have a mentor. And one of the things that I was doing in the beginning and before I got my mentor, and I had a level of success, but I was spinning my wheels on certain stuff. When you talk about the text message, I completely understand. We were pushing text messages because at the time it was like, just get leads in the door. And we were getting all of these leads, but they were a bunch of garbage leads where our team had to filter through. And it's like, all right, you're working on this garbage, but we have quality leads that's coming in, that's sitting in the pipeline that we can't get to because we're trying to dig through all of this trash. So my mentor helped me filter through that, so now we use our text message platform primarily as a follow-up drip system. So guys, you hear us out there, we spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours, trying to figure this stuff out. There's no reason for you to go out there and try and reinvent the wheel, since we got everything already dialed in.
I think, guys like us that are consuming a lot of different content, hearing a lot of people talk, it's easy to get swept up into the drama of, texting's crushing it. Cold calling's crushing it. Like everybody's always saying XYZ is crushing it. Well, what does crushing it mean? How are we defining that? Because I got, now that I've started interviewing some people myself as well, like they're like, cold calling's crushing. We've got 6 cold callers. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of cold callers. That's a lot of data. And they're like, and we spend $20,000 on direct mail. I'm like, wow, okay, that's a lot of money. And then they're like, yeah, we've never cracked $100,000 in any given month. And I'm like, you have 6 cold callers and you're spending that much. So it's just like, what we're trying to do now is come back, get out of the drama into the data and look at our numbers and be like, what works year over year, month after month? Let's focus on that and focus on having less quantity of leads, but higher quality of leads, and really working those hard, And so that's sort of the shift that we're making. And especially with the market shifting too, like we got to do more with less.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of people, it's more, but more doesn't always equate to quality, and that was one of the things that we were doing was we weren't getting a ton of leads, but we were getting quality leads. And once we started going through those quality leads, it was like, okay, at first my acquisition guy, he was like, man, you know what? I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs, but it was like once a lead pushed over to you, you automatically knew, hey, I'm getting paid on this versus, all right, I'm spending 3 weeks sifting through just to find one gold nugget. So, but some people rather have a ton of leads. That way they can work them consistently. I just don't like to burn a lot of man hours.
For sure. And that burning out your employees thing is just, that's real. If they have to go through 10 leads to find one good one versus 55, that's a lot of calls to a lot of tire kickers. And you and I both know talking to tire kickers is so draining. So, it's, it just depends on your strategy and your theory. You can, either way you can do it and be successful. I think that's just in our experience, what we're doing now.
Yeah. And the main thing is just be consistent, whatever direction you want to go in, just be consistent at that, because once you're consistent, then you'll be able to look at those metrics and say, okay, well, this is what we did last year. Where are we at this year? Are we on pace to hit that benchmark or exceed that benchmark? But if you're not consistent, you don't know what's working, what's not working, things like that.
For sure. One thing that we just realized that's pretty interesting is we have a really...
Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, cool. Our sales process is or our hiring process, I should say. Our hiring process is pretty dialed in. So we don't let many people get on our team because we give them a lot of opportunities to mess up. And if they do, they don't get hired. So we got 2 really good sales guys. Our primary sales guy, he's, putting up 100,000, 150,000 in individual months, one sales guy. And so we're like, oh, well, I guess this is sort of, maybe someone will do a little less, 100 or maybe 90 a month. Let's set the goal up at that level. But this is where mentorship comes in, and you're talking to your mentor and saying, hey, we want to hire someone else. What should the expectations be? This guy's performing at double, almost triple of what some normal closers would be doing. And so what I realized is as we scale, we have to set expectations that are reasonable based on the baseline, not based on one rock star, because we're going to constantly be disappointed if we're always basing our numbers off our one rock star. So that's just a perspective shift as we're trying to hire on more people right now. And, just something to think about for those other folks out there. It's hard you're not going to find someone that's going to match your sales skills, Yeah. And I think that's where it's hard for people to let go sometimes, because they're like, well, I would have closed this deal and that deal and that deal. And it's like, well, cool. Then you're going to be working on the phones every day for the rest of your life.
You're going to be limited to that one position and you're not going to be able to grow. So Chris, let's talk about kind of building that virtual wholesale funnel. So as far as finding boots on the ground, like you said, putting a lockbox on, everything like that, because there is a strategy and a plan for that. So let's kind of start there. So when you decided to go into Indianapolis, did you know anybody in Indianapolis, any boots on the ground or anything like that? So
nope.
So kind of walk us through that. Let's go back to, when you got started. What did you do first once you finally decided, okay, Indianapolis is the place I'm going to be at?
Yep, absolutely. So I actually ordered direct mail and I didn't even have someone in place yet. Once I got a couple leads in, found someone that was going to be that I thought would be a good fit. And I offered to JV the deal with him. I said, look, you go take pictures, get the contract signed. And then I want you to also find a buyer, because he said he had some buyers. Turned out
where did you find him at?
Oh, I went on to Facebook, and then just Indianapolis real estate investors. Like you can do so much through those groups. You can find boots on the ground. You can find contractors, find buyers. Like the minimum you need in terms of contacts is available just on Facebook. Like you just got to go ask for it, is what I found.
True.
That way. And I worked with a couple of JV partners, and that was always the same setup. I would try to get it locked up once I learned about DocuSign. We would DocuSign the contract, and then I'd send them out to take pictures, and then they would find the buyer. And so that's what I was doing for a while, but I was splitting the profit 50-50 and I was paying for the marketing. So when I had a W-2 job and I was making decent money, like that was okay. But then once I wanted to quit, I was like, I can't give up 50% of my profit. You know? And so I hired on a family member. She started doing sales for me so that I could not be in it every single day. So she starts locking up deals, but no real sales process. And then me and my JV partner were like, we got to get some sort of training going. So we did that. We got John Martinez, REI Sales Academy. So we bought that course, learned that, start using some of those processes, training and all that. And, you know, it was just still very inconsistent is the reality of it. You talked about consistency earlier, and it's like, we didn't have daily trainings, which we have now. We didn't have weekly one-on-ones with each employee where we review a sales call, which we have now. We didn't have outside sales call review that we pay for, which we have now. And it's like, now that we have all that stuff, like when everyone is doing the exact same thing in terms of their process on the phone, you can have accountability. But if it's like, oh, Jim does it that way, Sarah does it that way, it's hard to really hold anyone accountable. So we didn't have that accountability early on. And so we had a family member, then I brought a couple of other people on, but it was still like me making it up. And I finally brought on my sister, Julie, who's our director now. And I just took the book Traction, the EOS model, which I know you're familiar with. And I just said, you're going to be the integrator. And she said, what's the integrator? And I said, I drew like that chart, that says like visionary, integrator, sales, and I just circled vision integrator. And she was like, what does that mean?
What does it mean?
I don't know. Read the book.
Right.
So I gave her the book and she implemented that. And so that helped us a lot. The Traction. I think that when you're starting out, do you guys use the Traction model at all as well?
Yeah. Gino.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So that's such a game changer, especially the daily meetings. The meeting pulse is what they call it. And so we actually have 2 of those now. We have one for acquisitions where there's a mini training and they meet, and then we have one for dispositions and TC. So they're 2 separate meetings now every morning. But once we implemented that, totally changed things. And then ultimately we got in with Tiffany and Josh High. They do Results Driven is their company. And so they're our current mentors. And we finally had like just documentation of like, this is what these people say in this situation, this is what your closers need to say. And then we have this follow-up specialist role that we have now. And their whole goal is to go through leads that have either been, maybe touched once, but no one got a hold of them. Maybe they're lightly cold, get them on the phone, qualify them and say, do they have urgency? They have motivation. And then if they can get I don't know if they ask ballpark price at the front, but they get a couple of motivating
qualifying questions. Yeah,
exactly. Qualifying questions. And then we live transfer to our closer, who then takes them through a full, what we call a process call, and make sure like that they're qualified for the offer. Then from there, and we don't make a ton of offers, like outward offers without hearing something first. Like, we're going to ask them in 4 to 5 different ways if they won't give us a number. And so here's a little hack for people is like, you can get a number out of people typically if you're willing to ask enough times. What do you think is a fair price for the house? Well, I don't know. Okay. Well, if I was going to pay all the commissions and all the closing costs and you didn't have to worry about any of that, like, what do you think would be okay with you? So I just asked it basically the exact same thing, right? Well, I mean, like, what would you want to walk away with? So now we're kind of figuring in the mortgage and then if they're like, I don't know. It's just like, well, you wouldn't accept 20 grand, would you?
Right.
So you throw out that crazy number.
Crazy
like,
low number.
I would never do that. It's like, okay, so you got some sort of idea of it.
Yeah.
Help me help you. And then the last piece of this whole thing that has been really powerful is like, this is probably the biggest piece in changing our sales process, man, that I would just say, like, our sales numbers, like, probably went up 30 to 50%, like in all of the preceding months when we did this. So before, what we used to do is it's like, if I'm the sales guy, I'm negotiating directly with the seller, right? And I'm saying, hey, well, 150 is kind of high. Could you do 130? Can you work with me? Can you work with me? I'm the adversary of this person.
Right.
So now what we do is we talk about the funding partners. And we say, well, I got to go talk to the funding partners, and like, they're not in a very good mood today. And like, I just think it's a little high. Like, if I can go get it approved though, like, if they're going to want you to sign today. So it's all about them. It's this outsourced body, which is just my sister, but it's this outsourced body that now, like, I'm on your team, Mr. Seller.
I'm on your side. I take the responsibility off of me, put it on someone else.
100%. So that's been a game changer. I know I got a lot of things I said in there, but processes, like sales tactics at work, have been the biggest things, and just being consistent. Like you've said this so many times already in this interview, like it's about being consistent. It's about being consistent. And it is, like, if you have a flavor of the week new thing you're doing with your people, they're going to stop trusting you.
Yep.
So we try to, like, I of course want to do a million things, and that's why you have an integrator, because you have a million things as a visionary, and it gets filtered through, and then only like one makes it out.
One thing, yep.
But it's one good thing,
Right? Because and that's one of the problems of being an entrepreneur, because in the middle of the night you get all of these crazy harebrained ideas, and you're like, man, that'll work, this will work, that'll work. But then, like you said, when you have that filter process, they'll be like, look, that's not gonna work. That's not going to work. Maybe we can try this, but I think if we implement this, it'll work, So that's very, very key, because I'm that way, man. I wake up, 12 o'clock at night, writing down ideas, then 3 o'clock writing down ideas. And then I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
100%. Yeah. But at 3 o'clock, you were like, I'm going to be the next Elon Musk.
Yep. I'm a genius here. I figured it out. Nobody else can think of it. Right. So let's do this, Chris. Let's take a brief break, hear a word from our sponsors. And when we come back, let's talk about your team. How many people you got on your team? What are those roles? Because I know you were talking about follow-up specialists, which I like, because we don't have that in place. And I think that is very, very integral in closing some of those deals that just kind of get left behind. So let's hear a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Finding real estate deals can be a challenge, but with Batch Leads, it doesn't have to be. Batch Leads has created a one-stop solution for all your real estate needs, so you can find more sellers, close more deals, and maximize revenue. Batch Leads offers a comprehensive suite of lead-generating tools that cover text messaging, skip tracing, finding comps, and much more. Batch Leads help you simplify, manage, and organize all your data in one place. Batch will help you stack your lists and identify properties that appear on multiple lists and have multiple distress indicators. These sellers are likely to be highly motivated and eager to sell. Get the most powerful and complete lead generation platform in the industry. Locate sellers, buyers, and lenders nationwide in seconds. Go to batchlead.io and use promo code WeLoveEquity. Are you tired of seeing others becoming successful real estate investors and you just don't know where to start? You see all the Instagram posts of others being successful. You see the Facebook ads guaranteeing instant success. You look at tons of YouTube videos, and you even attend seminars just to be tricked into $10, $20, or even $30,000 courses. Well, with the Deal Finders Club, my husband is here to change things for you. Have you said to yourself, I'm deadly afraid to talk to sellers and I have no confidence. I don't know where to find motivated sellers. I don't know where to get a contract from. I don't know how much to offer the seller, let alone where I'm going to get the money from to close the deal. Well, in the Deal Finders Club, Marcus and his partner Mike are going to show you how to overcome all those challenges and more. Find out how by going to azdfc.com. That's azdfc.com. We'll see you inside.
All right, guys, we are back with Chris Gould, and we are talking about virtual wholesaling. And he gave us a lot of strong tips so far, man. So remember, this is the halfway point. Go back, rewind, listen to it again, because I guarantee you there is something that you missed, that you overlooked. So, but going forward, Chris, kind of tell us about your team, because I know starting out, you were a one-man band trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
When did it click to where you said, you know what, I got to bring somebody else to help me out? You know, was it 6 months down the road? Was it a year? Was it 2 years? Kind of where were you at in that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it goes back to when you first start your journey, knowing where you're trying to go. And for me, that time freedom was it was at the core of what I wanted. I didn't want to have to go in every day. I didn't want to have to grind all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had this belief that I could do it without that. So even when I was one man banding it, I knew that's where I wanted to get to. So as soon as I got a little bit of money from some of these deals, it's like I could have technically probably just done my 9 to 5 and then done 3 hours of work or 4 hours of work every night and still made it happen.
Yep.
But I hired early because I was just like, I didn't do this to have a second job. I did this because I want to build a business, and businesses that run when you're not there are real businesses. They're not just second jobs. So I'd say probably, there's that whole beginning part where it was all crazy. Once I actually got settled in Indianapolis, it took 6 months. It took 6 months. And then I hired my aunt and she started from there. And I was able to just manage her. And so that's where I started understanding about leveraging your time. And when you've just been working for someone else in trading dollars for hours, it takes a little while to break that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like to not take what we call is like stealing the ball from your people. So as that visionary, I've had times before where I hear a call and I'm like, hey, let me talk to him.
Let me talk to him. Yep. Let me help you out here.
And I get on the phone and my sister, who's now the director, is just like, after she's like, literally never do that again. And I was like, okay. But so in terms of the team and the process, how that went, so I hired my aunt. And so it was just me and her for a while.
Okay.
So then my next hire was a full-time boots on the ground. And this was an older guy, didn't really know how to use technology, was the only person that replied to my job ad. So I was like, all right, I guess you're the number one candidate.
You're the one. Yep.
And I mean, he really couldn't use a computer, and I'm trying to get him to build MailChimp, emails to send to people and stuff. And, I think that's another big mistake that you make in the beginning. Like, oh, let me hire my buddy, Jim. Let me get my aunt to do it. And it's like, that's okay for a while, but also the headaches you create by not actually vetting people and making sure they're the right fit, you're going to regret that later. And I think of it in terms of like the high level of discomfort of like saying no to a lot of people, but then you have very low to no discomfort once they're actually on your team versus you skip it and you just hire the first person you meet essentially. And then you've got this annoyance that just happens constantly because they're not doing what they say they're going to do. They're not showing up. They can't perform. You're doing their job for them. Yep. I ended up building all this guy's emails. And then I'm like, what am I paying you to even do?
Exactly. And then you become frustrated. You're frustrated because you're like, this guy can't figure it out. He won't do it. But you already knew that going in that this person, couldn't do it. Yep. So, okay. So you had your aunt and then you had your boots on the ground guy. And then what?
So I think I actually hired my younger sister. I hired a VA to do sales. So I had a team of 4 and no deals were coming in. So I'm like, okay, I need to start getting back in this myself.
Right.
I got 2 removed. So I end up just randomly coming across a deal where I think I probably had 10 grand left in my bank account. I'm like, we're going out of business. This is over. I get one deal that I hold. I take all the money out of my personal bank account, business bank account. And I bought this house for 15 grand and then I sold it for 40. It was falling apart in Noblesville, Indiana. So I used that 25 grand. And the oldest girl in our family, Julie, calls me and is like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I get what you're trying to do. Let me come work for you. She's the most organized person I've ever met. She's the one that has her clothes color coordinated in order.
In the closet.
Yeah. And she's 6 years old and she's like, can we go to Office Depot? Because that's where she buys her toys because it's organizational supplies.
All right. Okay.
So anyways, I hire her. And she helps us implement traction. And that big part is doing the people analyzer. So you come up with your core values, which for us are with integrity, seek growth, radical candor, extreme ownership, and enjoy showing up. And then you say, are they a plus or are they a minus? I know you know this, but for the people that don't know what that is. And then do they get it? Do they get their position? Do they want to do it? And do they have the capacity to do it? So then we are like, okay, I guess we got to do this. And it's like, we went through and it's like, no. For our employee, like they didn't align with the core values. They didn't get it. They maybe wanted it, but they didn't have the capacity to do it. So we were like, man, we have to overhaul this whole team. So we end up, like I said, signing up with Tiffany and Josh, having this new process in place, and they just gave us scorecards. And we had this accountability now of like, we're all agreeing going forward. We're all going to say this and this and this in this order. And you need to fill out your numbers here. So once that accountability sets in, it's very difficult for people to hide their underperformance. When you're just Wild Westing it, you don't really know who's performing and who's not, other than like, oh, they brought in 3 contracts. And it's like, okay, cool, good job. But that's not enough of a metric to manage. Like that's just once it finally happens. But then when you don't get a contract for 3 weeks, it's like, oh, well, what happened? Like, well, you weren't tracking anything along the way, So now the current structure of our team, so we end up letting my aunt go. She retired. And then that older guy, we let him go. But me and my sister were still there. We brought on Zach Hardman, who's a beast. He was a captain of his baseball team in college, but just like the hardest worker. But when we look at that people analyzer now, it's like, yes, all across. And, so then we have Caleb, who's the follow-up specialist, teeing up deals for Zach all day long, teeing him up. And then we have Jennifer. So that's my youngest sister. She does dispositions. So, I'd love to talk to you at some point about the dispositions process in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then we had a transaction coordinator who actually just resigned recently. She just ended up not being a good fit for the company. So we've got TC, Dispo, the 2 sales guys. Julie does marketing, and then she manages the team. So she does the sales coaching with them. And so I mentioned this earlier, but we do a daily sales training. And I think that's really important to just do something quick and easy. And so you just review one part of the sales process, deal killers. Let's talk about deal killers. Let's role play it for 15 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the deals and like, what do we have planned for the day? Go do your thing. Then we have a one-on-one where we listen to a whole call with these people, with our employees, listen to a call, break it down, talk to them about it, talk about where they need to improve, what they're already doing good. And we actually have rocks for each employee. So like building a glossary of all real estate terms, writing out the process for building an email, whatever it might be. But so we're working on that with a one-on-one. And then, like I said, we have that sales call review where our guys upload their calls and then they get coached by like an actual sales coach, where that's all that they do all day. So, so we've got all that in place. We do a weekend review every Monday. And we actually, we're doing a level 10, like you have in traction, in the EOS model. So as people have issues come up throughout their week in their role, right? This thing in the CRM isn't working. They just put it on the issues list. So then we have a team meeting to discuss, what do we need to do with things that are happening? We're getting all of our deals have 5 investors on them. Issues list. So it lives in one place instead of in the moment coming in. Hey, can I talk to you? Yeah, I'm really struggling with blah, 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 blah. It's like,
we need to fix this.
When you're doing that, like Julie as the manager, her time it's so herky jerky. She's working on something. What can I help you with? Okay, now I got to pick up momentum again. What can I help you with? So we're trying to take the issues and talk about them in one place in a very efficient manner. Because as you know, man, like you can drown in all the little minutia details. And then next thing you know, like, are we really being effective and efficient? Or are we talking about problems too much when we should just be, let's put it in a box and we'll revisit it at a certain point,
at a certain time. So let me ask you this, Chris, because we are going to get to the dispositions before we wrap up. So when you were building out this team, about how many deals were you guys doing a month before you started building the team? And then how many did you start doing after you built the team?
So I'm looking in terms of number of deals. It's a little hard. I would say maybe 3 to 5, because I'm thinking in terms of revenue in my mind. So before I had an actual team in place, we would be, I would say 30 to 50K a month, kind of going between. Some months we would make 0. Some months we would make 60. It was totally sporadic. There was no predictability to it. So that was what our numbers would be like. We might get a package. So we get 7 houses, and then it like way overinflates our numbers. Like I don't look at packages like packages are just something you get lucky with.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't say, oh, we crushed it in July. It's like, well, you really only got one deal that happened to be 7 houses. We actually didn't do very good in July, you know?
Right.
So, but yeah, I'd say 30 to 50K, call it 3 to 5 deals a month.
Okay. Perfect. So now we talked about the acquisition side, you know, how you guys are finding the deals with the direct mail and the cold calling and everything like that. Now, as far as the dispositions, what's that disposition process? How does that look? So once that property is under contract, where does it go?
For sure. So I think that TC and dispositions need to be work together. And I think most people, you can have TC and dispo be the same person up until about 15 deals. After that point, it becomes hard to actually work the dispo process well, but up to 15, you can have someone do both. And I would recommend that for most people that are starting. If you can get one acquisition and one dispo, that you can do a lot with those 2 people alone. But going to the process, we get a contract. We have a couple of different inspectors. So we're always interviewing for inspectors, and we want to create a list of them. They get a group text. Hey, we have an inspection at this property address. The first person to respond gets it. They go out, they have to take at least 100 pictures. And if they don't take good pictures, they have to go back. They have to submit a form that just says like, hey, is the roof leaking anywhere? Do you see any cracks in the basement? So it's a simplified form. They go out. If it's vacant, they'll put a lockbox on it. If it's not vacant, obviously they can't.
Right. Okay.
So from there, you have to realize we've already got the property under contract before we've even seen it. That's very important for virtual wholesaling, because when you're physically wholesaling, and you know this, Marcus, when you go to a house and you say, I can give you $100,000. And then if you have to come back and renegotiate for any reason, they're like, what do you mean? You saw the house already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the power of virtual wholesaling, is like, I'm signing it up before I even see it. Then we take pictures. Then we share it with our investors through MailChimp. And we say, you know, here's the price. We give a ton of detail, links to comps. We give pictures. We give a video. We talk about the age of all the different appliances, the roof, et cetera. And if we don't know, we say we don't know.
Okay.
We require $5,000 non-refundable earnest money for the first time, guys. $2,500 if you've bought a bunch of deals from us before. So we send that out. So we've done our initial inspection, and we've already told the seller ahead of time that we will have to do a funding partner walkthrough at some point. Okay. So we're working with our investors at that point and just deciding, like, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep this house ourselves, which is a small percentage of the time, or who are we going to give it to? So we'll get a couple of people interested in the deal usually.
Okay.
And then what we do is if there's people in the house, we have to set up an investor walkthrough. So let's say we set up an investor walkthrough for Wednesday. They're going to go to the house with our inspector that was there at the first walkthrough. He's going to go to the second one and be that barrier so that they're not asking weird questions or just being inappropriate, right? Trying to go behind our back, whatever. They go walk through the property, and then our dispositions person sends an offer deadline email that says, all offers need to be received by 5 p.m. on Thursday. And so that's what we send out. Now, some people call us and say, well, just tell me what the highest offer is and I'll give you more than that. And what we just have to say is like, well, I'm sorry, but that's not fair to everybody else.
Right.
Because now if I give you I tell you what it is and you beat it, don't I have to go tell them what you did? And like, I don't want, just run your numbers and whatever you feel comfortable with, let us know. And so that's really powerful. I found, you're not as buddy with your buyers, but ultimately, like, I don't want to be buddy with my buyers. Right. It's business. And like being buddy usually means me getting a bad deal.
Yeah.
So, I look back and when I did buddy deals and I was like, okay, fine, I'll give it to you. And then I get an offer for $15K more 3 hours later.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the heck am I doing? So now, because I'm not in that role, this is again, the power of removing yourself from the roles within the business. We have Jennifer doing dispositions, and she's like, I will get in trouble if I accept an offer before the offer deadline. And so they're like, okay, I guess it's not even her choice.
Right. That's good.
Now here's a little tip. Even if you only have one buyer interested, you still set an offer deadline. So it creates a sense of urgency as well with your buyers.
Yep.
So whether we have 10 or we have one, we follow the same process every single time, and we set an offer deadline. And we've had times where an investor that really wants a deal will offer us like 20K over asking, even though they're the only investor, but they really want it. So you never know how it's going to work, but this is, like you said, consistency. When you are consistent with your process, like it will bear fruit, and it makes your life easier. And so that's how we do the dispositions process so once no deal is anybody's until we have a receipt of earnest money. So if it's a Saturday, they're like, oh, I can't wire it till Monday. It's like, yes, you can. You can wire it today. Send me a screenshot of the thing.
Screenshot of the wire. Yep.
If people that say like, oh, I can't do it till Tuesday because Monday's a holiday and it's like a Friday, I'm immediately like, cool, you're trying to wholesale this. You're doing something weird.
Yep. You're trying
if
to tie
you're serious, try and tie it up. So that's our dispositions process. And then TC just picks it up from there. And we have what we call the 72-hour rule. And we talk to the seller every 72 hours, no matter what, while we're leading up to things, just to be like, hey, you good? Hey, here's an update on what's happening. Title works processing. We got funding approved. We're all good to move forward. Do you need a ride? So that what I did in the past sometimes is like, we wouldn't check in with them until like, so maybe we're like, cool, we're good to go. We get it assigned, but we can't close for 20 days for some reason.
Yep.
We don't talk to them for 20 days. And then we're like, hey, closing's tomorrow. And they're like, oh, I signed with someone else. I haven't heard from you.
Else. Yep.
And you're like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I had that happen before where we had a good conversation with the seller. Everything was in escrow. And we told them, we said, hey, you know what? Closing's going to be on this date. We'll give you a call probably a week before. And it was just like, all right, this one is already done, basically. And then it comes before closing, and the attorney was like, hey, you know what? We can't get in touch with the seller. When was the last time you talked to the seller? It's like, oh, you know what? 2 weeks ago, we talked to the seller. And then come to close, they're like, well, you know what? Somebody else has tied this property up. So then it's banter back and forth. No, it's my deal. No, it's my deal, back and forth, you know? So guys, that's a pro tip. Always check in with your seller. Like Chris said, every 72 hours, just even if it's, hey, you know what, just checking in with you, letting you know that everything is going great. We just talked to title company and we're on track. That's it.
Absolutely.
Something as simple as that.
Absolutely. Yep. That's a great tip.
So man, great stuff, Chris. Dude, I'm gonna have you back on the show again, because we kind of went high level real quick, but it was good stuff, you know. So let's do this. We'll plan a date to have you back on at your convenience, man. But before we kind of give some words of encouragement to those people that are starting or struggling, hey, you know what, I'm, you know, doing one deal every other month or one deal every 3 months. Talk to those people and let's just give them some words of encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been there. I've been doing one deal a month, and that's where you got to paint a vision for your future. Like, what do you want for yourself? I think sometimes we get caught up in just wanting to make 10 grand. And, you know, and then you get that. And if you're listening to this and you're in that position, you know, it's not that fulfilling to get 10 grand in your pocket, because you know, there's more that you want. So what I would recommend doing, and this is something I did early on, I wrote out, like, what does my perfect dream life look like? What is the setup? What does my team look like? How much money am I making? And, you know, I wrote that and I just literally folded it up and I put it in my wallet and I would look at it sometimes. You know, you could do this with your vision board as well. But I think what helps you push through the tough times is having a vision for your future. So if you don't have a clear vision for your future, sit down with a pen and paper, go to Starbucks and just dream. And then, you know, look back on that. And once you make your next 10 grand check, think, am I spending this money in a way that's helping me get to that vision for my future? Or am I wasting it on like some instantaneous pleasure of the moment? And so that'd be my biggest advice, in addition to just like like you said, Marcus, you just got to be consistent. Like what separates me from the people that failed along the way, I just kept showing up every day.
Yep.
And even if I only did a little bit, I showed up every day. And over time, now our business, like we cracked $1 million last month, and we're doing really good with just wholesaling.
Good.
And it's like, it's simply a matter of taking one tiny step every single day. And so if you're not doing something for your business every single day, you need to start doing that immediately, because then you don't have a business, you have a hobby, and you're not going to get where you want to go with a hobby. So
very true, man. Chris, I really appreciate it, man. Tell us what you have for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest thing that we're launching is something called Predictive Seller. So it's predictiveseller.com. And what we've done is worked with an engineering firm to design an algorithm. And what we're doing is we're taking the people in any given city that are most likely to sell off market at discount to an investor. So that's a very certain type of person that's willing to trust an investor to work off market. So we took that, we built an avatar and an algorithm, and we run the population of whatever city you're in through that and say, here are the people that look like a distressed off market seller. And so we're launching that. We're taking early license requests. So only a couple people per city are going to get that. So if you want to get in early and reserve your city, go to predictiveseller.com. I'm also giving away my wholesaling crash course. So especially if you're early on, go to level10official.com, and then you can go and find my course from there, as well as some other podcast stuff. Just use the code podcast, and then you'll get the course for free. It'll say it's $1,000, but once you put in the promo code, it'll be for free. And then I've got a Facebook group called Wholesaling Mastery, and I got to get you in there, Marcus. And interviews with people, different tips, anything I'm going through in the moment in my business that I think will be helpful to people, I'm sharing in that group. It's a great place to network as well. So if you want to join that, you can submit a request to join the group, and love to have you guys in there.
All right, guys. So you know what to do. Chris gave you all of the information, gave you some goodies. Make sure you use those promo codes and get active, get out there and start doing deals. And not only do deals, but start setting up a pattern and a success track so you can be consistent at what you're doing. So Chris, I really want to appreciate you, man. After the recording, just stay on so we can chat for a minute. But We Love Equity listeners, do me a favor. Get out there. Let's support Chris. Let's make sure you go and check all of his resources, because you're speaking with or listening to $1 million wholesaler right here, right now. So if you want to know what to do, why not listen to the people that's already doing it? So I appreciate you, family. Thank you so much. And we will see you until next time.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Chris Gould, based out of Denver, but doing deals in Indianapolis. Very, very good information there. You listen to how he started, what he did, all of the steps that he had to take, the mistakes that he made, the things that he corrected in order to get where he needed to go. So remember, don't be prideful. If you're making mistakes, if you're not doing things right, you can always pivot. You can always change, and it's not too late to get where you need to go. So keep that in mind. Remember, we want to keep continuing to give you this good content, this great content. So always go to marcusemaloney.com, get the updated podcast, or go to MRCS Maloney at YouTube to get the full videos. Thank you so much. And also, if you're looking for that mentor, you're looking for that person to push you along that journey, go to azdfc.com. That's azdfc.com. Not only me, but my partner, Mike, who has more years doing this than I do. We help you get to that next level. So again, go to azdfc.com. We would love to have you a part of the Deal Finders Club. Thank you for listening to today's show. I picked up some great actionable items, and I'm sure you did as well. If so, let me know. You can always reach me via social media at facebook.com/MRCSMaloney, Twitter at MRCSMaloney, and of course, IG at MRCSMaloney. You can also always reach me via email at mmaloney@equityri.com. Make sure you reach out to our guests as well. You can always find their contact information in the show notes below. If you have not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Join the family. And while you're at it, leave us a 5-star review. This is how we tell if we're providing you with what you need for your journey. If there's someone you would like for me to interview, or if there's a subject matter you would like for me to cover, please let me know. Finally, if you're looking for additional information about real estate investing, go to equityrealestateblog.com. Also, youtube.com/Marcus Maloney. Until next time, family, always enjoy the journey.